This video is brought to you by Motet Distributions and Mojawa. Hey guys, Jay here. So I've been documenting and uploading videos about my trip to Asia. For 41 days I was in Asia discovering and to find out firsthand how the hi-fi products we enjoy are designed and manufactured in Asia. And it was so fascinating to me how both China and Korea had such an amazingly impressive but also vastly different facilities. But by far, my last 3 weeks in Japan was the highlight for me. Japan is one of those countries that I always wanted to visit. Yes, like everyone else, my fascination has to do with the culture and food. You can bet I was a happy champ. But as someone who loves music and high-end audio, I think it's safe to say Japan is recognized as one of the most innovative countries for high-end audio, with one of the most prestigious brands in the world like ESOTERIC, TEAC, Accuphase, and Technics. And I'll be making more in-depth videos about each and individual company that I visited in Japan, as well as the other Asian countries. But this video is just like the other two videos that I posted about China and Korea. This video is going to be the general summary of my entire trip. Now with this being said, the first prestigious brand that I visited in Japan was none other than ESOTERIC and TEAC. But before we get to ESOTERIC and on my way there, a message from the sponsor of today's video, Mojawa. Meet the Pure Run by Mojawa. Yes, this is a bone conducting headphone. I'm sure you have heard of it before, but did you know that headphones like these can work on some deaf people? And it can help people that have tinnitus. Not to mention, it can quite literally help and save your eardrums because bone conducting headphones work by bypassing the eardrum and outer ear completely. And instead by converting sound into vibration that are transmitted directly through the bone of the skull to the inner ear. And because we don't just hear with our eardrums, this is exactly why we're able to hear our own voices when you plug your ears. See, I can still hear myself. And on that principle, if I put these headphones on and plug my ears, actually the sound source gets louder. Now unfortunately, as great as the technology sounds, often bone conducting headphones doesn't sound very good due to the lack of bass, especially, and that lean sound and kind of under the water kind of effect. The Mojawa Pure headphones here uses something very special that they patented called the Maglev Bass 7.0. And this patented technology fixes this problem by sending the vibration to the zygomatic bone to create a satisfying bass. It actually has satisfying bass that it didn't experience from previous bone conducting headphones before. It is also IP67 waterproof and dustproof, 15 hours of battery life, and wind noise cancellation for up to 30 km per hour with AI. Check out the special deals with the Mojawa Pure headphones in the link description below. Now back to the video. So as some of you may know, ESOTERIC is the more premium brand to TEAC, much like Toyota and the Lexus relationship. And I visited two locations at an hour apart from each other. One was their main office where they had not only TEAC components for me to listen to, but also ESOTERIC gear. The speakers they were using at this time were the Klipsch Jubilee speakers and BMW. And no, this is not a review, but the sound that I was hearing in this room was just absolutely fantastic. Dare I say, the best sound I've heard so far during this trip. And that was no accident. This room had just one of the most phenomenal acoustics. It was purposefully built and designed along with a professional acoustic treatment company in Japan to create the ultimate R&D room. And we need some context here because when we say professional acoustic treatment company in Japan, one of the best, it might kind of go over people's head, but we need to put it into context. The culture that I experienced in Japan, and this is not exclusive to audio, you name it, restaurants, Uber drivers, everywhere, like literally any service related, any job in Japan is taken very, very seriously by the people that do the job. So people that take very extreme care into their job to a point of what I feel to be extreme. Like, I'll give you an example. So I had this wonderful coffee at a cafe. And it was really nice, but it was not like really expensive or high-end like that, you know? It wasn't one of those bougie kind of things. So I don't want you to think that I went and spoiled myself or anything like that. This was just an ordinary cafe, nearest cafe to my hotel. So the next morning I arrived, I went to this coffee shop and they made the coffee very professional, you know, explaining everything, letting me smell the, you know, the grind and all that kind of stuff. And then when we were leaving, the owners of the cafe, both of them came out and was bowing 90 degrees until we were gone. So like this type of service, this type of professionalism, that you really, is a culture shock. Like I was really shocked. I was like, oh my God, we better like get the hell out of here so that they can go inside. But anyhow, the point that I'm trying to make is that the professions are taken very seriously in Japan. They take their jobs very, very seriously. And it was to a point where I could literally use luggage forwarding services from hotel to hotel, you know, with my camera gear. You know, I would never trust anyone to touch my camera gear, let alone a luggage forwarding service, but this was an exception. They did a fantastic job, and the culture has this embedded sense of treating other people's stuff like it's your own. And I bring this up because I feel that we have to put it into context as to what went into building this room, the effort. This room wasn't meant for the public, but for their internal R&D. And it was explained to me that the acoustics of this room was so very important that they consulted the best of the best acoustic experts in Japan to make sure that they were able to accurately and effectively rely on this room's acoustic as a reference point. Reference not just for developing and tuning the sound of their audio gear, but reference for their own mastering in this exact space, as they have their own albums as well that they produce. And the space turns into a mastering room for those sessions. So I had a fantastic time listening to both the TEAC gear and the ESOTERIC gear, and it was just a phenomenal experience. Now, I have so much to say about TEAC and ESOTERIC gear and the experience that I had there, but this video will get too long, so watch the dedicated video. But man, I have to really say the sound of this room with the ESOTERIC gear just floored me. It was a top-notch experience, and it was really eye-opening as to the real professional acoustic work that went into this room. And I probably should have started with this, but as we entered the office, there was a showcase of many products that TEAC had ever produced. Some of it is hi-fi gear, some of it is recording gear, and some of it is medical gear. And we will come back to the medical stuff as it becomes quite important for the context when I visit their factory, so remember that. Now the next day, we traveled another hour to an hour and a half to a very special factory in the outer skirts of Tokyo. Now TEAC and ESOTERIC has many factories, but the one I visited was the one where they focus on ESOTERIC, which again is their high-end premium brand. And I mean, this was one of the most impressive facilities that I have ever witnessed. The fascination wasn't just all the SMT machines. We've seen these before in my previous visit to other factories, but still impressive. But the difference here was the meticulous control of the space down to temperature, air quality, humidity, and dust level, all precisely controlling to keep the PCB components and solder in its most optimal environment. TEAC says outside of a more healthy sanitary environment for the employees, it also helps to prevent any small cracks or deformations on the PCB, and they learned over time that the optimal control of the environment, like a lab, helps with longevity and control and quality in their manufacturing process. I mean, guys, that is absolutely insane. This place, the environment of this factory was controlled down to the dot, pinpoint dot of temperature and dust level and whatever, much like a hospital environment. And there is a relation there because TEAC does produce some medical recorders, like I have mentioned that we saw back in the office. And it's manufactured here along with the ESOTERIC gear. It was explained to me that the exact same process is used for the ESOTERIC gear as it is with their medical device, and this is what I noticed. What I noticed was the utmost quality control, highest level of quality control, almost extreme, almost excessive amount of quality control every step of the way. Now, most high-end factories and really good factories that I have ever visited usually has like 3 to 4 checkpoints, and that is quite good quality control. A lot of manufacturers out there, the quality control is usually at the end, and that's about it. You know, testing and all that, make sure everything works, and out we go, right? Here, you're seeing a quality control every in-between process, either by a person or by a state-of-the-art X-ray machines. I think I lost count at like 12 different quality control checkpoints that I counted. And honestly, there is so much more I want to talk to you about, like their solder paste, which is their secret sauce into why their units sound so amazing. But if we go over all those nitty-gritty details in this video will be way too long, and we won't have time to talk about the other equally impressive brands. So make sure to check out the link in the description below. When the dedicated video is ready for these brands, I'll make sure to link them below, including ESOTERIC. And to the ESOTERIC team, thank you so much for your great hospitality, and thank you for letting me see what I saw and taking me to all these top-notch facilities. And also thank you for finding my new favorite food, sukiyaki. Like, this was just incredible. And honestly, I think during my time in Japan, I probably ate an unhealthy amount of food. Definitely way more than I should. But don't worry, I wasn't just eating like a fat pig the entire time I was in Tokyo. I mean, I was in Tokyo. So I visited the place that I really wanted to visit while I was in Tokyo, and that was the Tokyo Record Tower, of course. And man, this place was huge, filled with some amazing music choices. Like, the variety was so crazy. If you like music and any type of music, like, the chances are they have it. And of course, I went way over budget and cried while looking at these vintage Altic voice of the theater speakers rocking away. Like, these are super rare in North America, but it was just chilling here playing some mad tunes. And so I obviously bought some Ghibli Studio recordings and also, you know, like Japanese recordings, you know, Japanese pressings, right? Like, and these are all used. And man, this is the other thing that I have to talk about. Like, this is a whole nother video, but the pressings are really good quality. I mean, I was flabbergasted when I came back home and turned them on. Just really good quality. And these were all used. And when you buy them, they open it in front of you and check all the cover, the LP. They check all that for you and ask you, is this okay? You know, did they find anything? Like, they had this like small, you know, kind of like like you can't even see it, right? And they opened it and they said, oh, sorry, you know, they have this, you know, is it okay? And I'm like, yeah, totally fine. It's like brand new, and this thing it's used, you know, it's secondhand. So anyways, enough of me raving about Tokyo Record Tower. I think everyone knows, and at some point in your life, you have to visit at least once. It was just that amazing. Now, after some break, I headed towards Kawagoe, about an hour to the countryside of Japan, often coined as the Little Edo, as it still gives off those cultural vibes of the historic Edo period. This town is famous for their bell tower, Toki no Kane, which translates directly to Bell of Time. but it was used for fire prevention in the past. And I felt like I was in a movie or something, guys. Like, this was an extraordinary experience. And that night, I had one of the most amazing sushi just at a random restaurant that we decided to stop by. I was a happy man. But just about 20 minutes away was one of the Pioneer's factories, where they promised to show me the process of building TAD's electrical components from start to finish, namely the M700, which is honestly one of their top-end amplifiers to ever exist. So this was gonna be interesting. Now, to be honest, it wasn't just interesting, it was just absolutely insane. It was just mind-bogglingly insane. Because, mind you, the M700 is a big, hefty, heavy amplifier. Like, really heavy. It's a beastly amplifier. So I expected a few people to be working on it, like an assembly line or something. Nope. Just this lady and this machine. Yep. Just her alone assembles the M700 from start to finish. And these incredible workers are coined as Takumi. TAD calls them Takumi for artisan or craftsman, craftswoman type of, wording. So Takumi is a very special kind of position at TAD, and it's not an understatement to say they were kind of the soul, the underlying foundation of what TAD has built. So again, context. There's only about 12-ish Takumis approximately, and out of those 12 Takumis, there's only a few that can assemble everything from start to finish, and the Takumi that we're meeting today was one of those full assembly Takumis on the electronic side. And later, when I asked how long does it take for someone to become a Takumi, well, first of all, it was very hard for someone to even become one in the first place because the rigorous training process and the test process is about 6 months. And after about 6 months to a year, you begin to be a Takumi in the sense of assembling smaller, shorter parts. And then to become a full-fledged Takumi, it takes years. And it depends on the person's acumen and talent. And I could tell by the movement and the expertise of the Takumi I was seeing this day that this was not something that an ordinary human being like myself can ever do. Like, I'm way too clumsy for this, right? Like the way she's wiring things and making sure everything is fitting properly, like, it was an art. It wasn't just assembly, this was a form of art. It was as if she was a robot. For her work to start, every board is meticulously tested and prepared with components exactly numbered for the amount they need today. One leftover screw, one missing component can result in restarting the entire thing from the beginning. And every torque of the screwdrivers is set to the exact same torque required, not too tight, not too loose. I was told this also affects the sound quality. And can we just talk about the machines for a minute? Like, that was custom designed for her, apparently. Like, how cool is this thing? It is essentially 360, it rotates, it moves up and down. It was really magnificent to watch her work with this machine. From the power supply to the capacitor board, the cabling, all of it with a machine-like meticulousness by this lady was absolutely marvelous. Like, it didn't feel like she was operating the machine. It was like she was part of this machine and they were operating together. Like, you see what I'm saying? I think when you do something at such a high level, whether that is assembling things or anything really in the world, a skill set done to the highest level standard, I think it becomes a form of art. And that's what I witnessed this day. After she was done, she tested the amplifier with a variety of electrical tests, and then it was off to be packaged and sent to the lucky customer. I did, of course, get to hear the M700 in their listening room, and my god, guys, this sounded even better. Because it was like eating an apple pie after visiting an apple pie factory. Like, it hits you differently, Like, I just saw this M700 being built, and now I'm listening to it. Like, that was a different type of kind of biased, I guess, but it was just a really, amazing experience and something that I truly thought was an eye-opening experience. Like, the sound was amazing, what I just witnessed was amazing, everything was just meticulous, purposeful, and yeah, I was amazed. Like, you guys already know that I love the TAD's effortless, neutral, colorless sound, as I reviewed and owned the TAD ME1 speakers before, but man, again, this hit differently, and I had a great time listening with the TAD team. Next, I actually took the bullet train called the Shinkansen to TAD's speaker factory in Tendo. Now, if I thought Kawagoe was the countryside, well, Tendo was a different ballpark of countryside. And the view to Tendo was just incredible, straight out of a movie. And when we arrived in Tendo, Tendo is famous for its hot springs, incredible mountains, and their local sake brewery. And guys, normally I don't drink, but of course I had to try the sake, and it was the most savory, sweet sake I have ever tasted. But again, I don't usually drink, so take that with a grain of salt. But here in Tendo was TAD's factory, and after a warm greeting from them, they showed me their beryllium dome tweeters and some of their historic models in their museum from past to present, and even showed me their first ever coaxial speaker. And you may not know this, but it wasn't KEF or ELAC that pioneered dual concentric drivers or coaxial drivers. It was actually Pioneer that pioneered, pun intended, back in the 1980s with coaxial drivers. And I bring this up because TAD prides itself on using one of the highest quality and advanced coax driver that they have developed through decades of collected know-hows and experiments with coax designs. This driver is called the CST driver, which stands for Coherent Source Transducer, because one of the goals with a concentric driver is to have that phase coherency because of where the source comes from, right? Because the tweeter is embedded right between the mid-range driver, they're coming from the same point source, hence the phase coherency and the advantage of the source from the exact same position, both in the high frequency and in the mid-range. And once again, I was able to see and film a Takumi working on the CST driver from beginning to the end. And it was, once again, nothing like I ever witnessed before. Not only were they using these incredible machines to apply the exact amount of glue with precision, but I was also told some of it must be hand applied. And that's when the delicate focus control of the Takumi really was marvelous to watch. Every time she would glue something, I kept saying to myself, I can never do that. That is insane. And remember guys, this looks a lot smaller than what you see on the camera, so you have to put that into context because I'm using a more kind of zoom lens to focus into the shot, so you do have to put that into context. This is much more delicate than what is perceived on camera. And every time she would glue something, she would weigh the glue coming out first, multiple times before actually applying the same amount of glue precisely with absolute accuracy. And again, all these tools they were using were custom designed for the Takumis for this delicate process. And after the CST drivers are made, which consist of many different types of glues, and it was explained to me that that is one of the know-hows, the different types of the glues and what they use for what stage of the gluing process and how long they leave it for the curing process. All this type of thing was exactly what the know-how translates to CST being one of the best coax drivers that they have ever designed to date. And after the drivers are made, they are assembled into the cabinet, and again setting the torque of the screwdriver to exactly the torque required. And once the drivers are in there, it goes through a physical examination of any small defect or scratches using a very bright LED. every part of the speaker is meticulously examined. And once the examination is done, it makes its way into the testing chamber for a series of rigorous tests. Then it is moved to the torture chamber where it goes through its paces. Only the ones that survive makes it to the ranks and joins the rest, ready to be delivered to the lucky customer. Now, once again, there is so much more that I want to share that is outside the scope of this video, so please check out my full video when it's released for a more deep dive into TED speakers, including their insane process of making compression drivers. Next, after a really wonderful lunch at a local restaurant in Tendo, which served incredible soba, just the most savory soba I have ever tasted, and refreshing as well because it was really hot outside. And of course, they had this really interesting horn and tube vintage system going on, putting out some amazing tunes as well. And so after this great lunch and saying farewell to the team at Tendo, I went back on the Shinkansen to Yokohama. You might ask, why not go back to Tokyo or go to Osaka? What is in Yokohama other than baseball? And well, for those keen audiophiles out there, you know exactly what's in Yokohama, and that is none other than Accuphase. I mean, where do I even start? I have Accuphase pieces from way back, even before they were Accuphase. I have the Kenwood L07M, and just over the years, I just learned to really love Accuphase, and I think Accuphase has made its way to the North American market to where it's really respected on this side of the world as well. So it's one of those brands that I really wanted to check out while I was here. And thankfully, thanks to Peter at Multi Distribution, who is also the sponsor of this summary video, I was able to. So thank you very much, Peter. First, I was greeted with a room full of almost every model they ever made. And as you may know from my previous coverage videos at Expona, as well as my interview that I did with the Accuphase founder and the lead designer and engineer in this room at our One Bit podcast with Sean, I mean, I think most of you know by now that Accuphase stands for the utmost highest quality and reliability in the industry. They pride themselves of that. And the manufacturing process was insane, but was a reflection of the words that I've heard from other people in relation to reliability and performance. And the common theme across all these Japanese companies was the focus on quality control. Not just quality control, like, oh, it's okay, but the utmost extreme type of quality control. Like, again, what Accuphase does at this factory is a bit insane. Like, for example, they have this vibration station that literally is like an earthquake machine that vibrates the entire machine for any loose screws or anything like that, any kind of vibration that is creeping up to the components. Like, they're measuring all the vibration on the vibration kind of station. And mind you, like, it's hard to see on the camera, but when they turn on this vibration station, I mean, it's not just light vibration, like, zzz, no, it's like it's a earthquake they're producing here. So I even asked them, like, is this, like, are you guys like, no pun intended, but like, are you preparing your unit for earthquakes? Like, what's going on? And they said, well, essentially for shipping, international shipping, or for any kind of those movements during the assembly process, if there's any screw loose, the vibration control of the chassis itself, is it within the tolerance of what they expect? Like, all this type of things matters. So they do this rigorous vibration station test for every component that they assemble here. Oh, and no, that was not the most insane part. They also had like these ladies look at the front panel, and they were all examining very, very carefully, wiping it multiple times to see if there's any little scratch. And at some point, they showed me this. They said, hey, this is one of the pieces that we're throwing out because there's a small scratch on it. We can't use it. And I was like, sorry, what am I looking at? They're like, that little dot that the tape is pointing to. Like, I'm not sure if you can see it through the camera, but if you can, I certainly couldn't with my naked eyes. You know, I don't have the best eyesight, but like that was just like, I mean, if anything, like a dust. And oh yeah, of course, we have to talk about the AAVA volume control, which is Accuphase's special technology for their preamps. Like, this is one of those things that make their preamplifier very special, and I questioned about the AAVA volume control during my podcast with them directly to the head engineer, and he explained it very well. But again, this AAVA volume controller is manufactured here, and then it goes through rigorous testing, some crazy amount of number of turns before it passes, and if there's any little, you know, it doesn't have to even fail, any little weird movement, it goes back out to be redone or, you know, in the trash. So yeah, some rigorous testing. Whether it's aesthetically, mechanically, or electrically, they all go through such a rigorous test at each step of the assembly, and of course, they had a torture chamber for the final test. And at some point, you have to understand that the tests and the type of tests and the rigorous tests they do here is not just because of the frequency of the test, but most components out there that is going through this type of test would not only just miserably fail at these tests, if they're lucky, they malfunction. If they are not so lucky, they go up in flames, and that's the more likely scenario. So considering all that, the test that they go through with their equipment is just absolutely insane level of commitment to quality. Like, Accuphase can't cheap out on the component quality, not because, you know, not that they ever would, but again, not because they're like so prideful of using high quality components and stuff like that, but essentially because like they just wouldn't survive normal components, and hasn't passed the rigorous tests themselves, wouldn't pass the rigorous testing that the components go through at the end of the day. But again, it wasn't just the components and the rigorous testing process that was so impressive about Accuphase. It was also the culture. Much like the other companies, most of the employees and workers in this factory have been with Accuphase for decades. And once again, in a country where their jobs are taken very seriously, they have already become masters at whatever their task is. So whether you're assembling, testing, or designing, having been with the company Accuphase for decades and have essentially grown with the brand, it brings out a sense of assurance that when you buy Accuphase, you know it has gone through the same individuals that have been doing their specific tasks within their expertise since the inception of the model. And that goes the same for Accuphase's warranty and service team. Now, I'll put it out there, it is very rare to see an Accuphase piece out in the wild fail. I've personally never seen that happen before. But I imagine they eventually do, due to old age and so on. And Accuphase is one of those companies that can service even their very first model. They can service any model they ever created. And that usually means two things. One, they have to have the number of components per model they ever created to be able to service for decades. They have to store all those components, even decades after discontinuation of the model. But number two, it also means having the same people that worked on those models now responsible repairing them. So not only do these individuals know the model through and through because they've worked on the manufacturing process before, but they just know Accuphase. That's the brand and company that they have, again, grown with. So repairing these models almost comes as second nature to them. And you can see that they were repairing some very old classic Accuphase pieces that is really rare to see in the North American market being repaired for locals here. And with Accuphase's large filtering capacitor, big robust toroidal transformer, and amazing sound quality, Accuphase has become very well known in North America for its impeccable quality. And they are prideful of creating such masterpieces because they know that they're creating masterpieces. but it doesn't come off like an ego. It is more like their seriousness approach to their job. They're just very, very dedicated to their jobs. Like, they aren't saying they are the best. They are saying that within the scope of what they design and make, they are putting in their best work every step of the way because they take their jobs very seriously, and any sensible person hearing this will know that that's a hard thing to beat for any company. Yet, for brands like Accuphase or other Japanese brands that I've witnessed, it wasn't just the CEO or the manager or the owner or the founder of the company that was just passionate. It was every worker, every designer, every factory owner that, not with words, but showed me with actions that they absolutely cared deeply about every glue they apply, every solder point they inspect, every assembly they do. And honestly, for a lazy guy like me, this kind of work ethic is really unimaginable, and witnessing it firsthand, how hard and dedicated everyone was just truly amazing. But again, this isn't unique to these Japanese hi-fi brands. These are qualities that's embedded into the culture of literally every Japanese business I've ever been to, including restaurants, Uber rides, etc., hotels, everywhere, coffee shops, you name it. Like I mentioned, everywhere has this. So it's not like it's a unique thing. So as impressive as these hi-fi brands of Japan was, they were special, but not unique. And I think if anything, these high-end brands of Japan is a real good testament and embodiment of the Japanese culture. It's almost like going into a really old traditional sushi shop locally that have been run from family generations, right? You know that sushi is going to be good. And you know Accuphase and all these other Japanese brands are gonna be amazing because of the people behind each brand that have become masters at what they do best. After my wonderful time in Tokyo with some of the top brands in Japan, I decided to take the bullet train to Osaka. What's in Osaka, you might ask? Well, other than the beautiful Osaka castle that could be seen from my hotel window, it's also only an hour away from Nara Park, where there are deers that literally bow back to you for treats, and Uji, which is where all my matcha I've been ordering have been coming from, where they produce the finest green teas and matcha powder. I mean, I think this was heaven. From the beautiful scenery to the matcha, the food, I mean, what more can heaven provide me that Japan can't? That's the question I want to ask. And you know what else Japan has in Osaka? Well, the biggest corporation in Japan, Panasonic. More specifically, I was interested in checking out their Technics branch of brand of Panasonic that makes turntables, hi-fi gear, speakers, earphones, headphones, and so on. So I wanted to check out more of the Technics, R&D, and stuff like that. But I think there was a little miscommunication. I got to mainly just check out the museum, so it was a little bit of a bummer that I didn't get too much hi-fi stuff in here. But the museum was really, really cool, don't get me wrong. And I think they told me that this museum is gonna be closing soon, so this might be the last time you ever see it. Thankfully, I captured it on video. So make sure to watch this full video, it may be worth your while. But yeah, they did have some cool hi-fi stuff in the museum as well, like I said. Like their stereo system, receivers, consoles, speakers, CD players, and turntables that I am sure some of you may have owned at some point. I even got to see their first ever driver by Panasonic and learned that the founder Konosuke Matsushita was born under a tree, and the story that laid foundation to the birth of Panasonic. That all started with Konosuke's family and himself assembling improved light bulbs from their home. It was clear to me that he was very much respected and loved by everyone at the company. What was interesting was that the place that I was in, this ginormous, gigantic place of a facility, I mean Panasonic, really big, right? Really big facility here. So this big facility existed, for decades, back to when Konosuke was still alive and doing all the work So actually the 3 windows here that you see has been here exactly in those spots for decades. But Panasonic evolved to anything and everything from bikes, wall socket, washing machines, weird bath machines. Oh, and of course, camera gear, video gear. I mean, you name it. They made quite literally everything, not just for Japan or Asia, but for the global market. Of course, including the Technics turntables that's famous and known in the pro audio world as well as our home audio spaces. Like you see my reel-to-reel deck right here. Yeah, that's from Technics. And my SP10 turntable that I really loved back in the day, again, Technics. Lots of legendary pieces from Technics. So yeah, that concludes my summary video for my trip in Japan. And I still feel like this is going to be the longest video out of the 3 videos for Korea, Japan, and China because it was the longest stay, out of the 41 days. I stayed 3 weeks in Japan opposed to 2 weeks in Korea and only 8 days in China. So hopefully you didn't get bored throughout this video, but again, this is probably going to be the longest summary video and I have left out so many things that I need to tell you in the dedicated videos about each company. So if you are interested and intrigued of each company, depending on which company, go and watch the full video for a more deep dive and understanding of what I saw and felt during the trip. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching all these summary videos. Please share and click that like video if you liked it, as this was a lot of work. And again, special thanks to Peter from Multi Distributions for supporting this project. It would have not been possible without him. So huge thanks. And that's pretty much it from me. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Until next time.